All right, friends, time for day 11. We're on page 104, up there near the top. I was the first one up the next morning. Soda must have pulled my shoes and shirt off for me. I was still wearing my jeans. He must have been too sleepy to undress himself, though. He lay stretched out beside me, fully clothed. I wiggled out from under his arm and pulled the blanket up over him and then went to take a shower. Asleep, he looked a lot younger than going on 17, but I had noticed that Johnny looked younger when he was asleep too, so I figure everyone did. Maybe people are younger when they're asleep. After my shower, I put on some clean clothes and spent 5 minutes or so hunting for a hint of beard on my face and mourning over my hair. That bum haircut made my ears stick out. Derry was still asleep when I went into the kitchen to fix breakfast. The first one up has to fix breakfast and the other two do the dishes. That's the rule around our house, and usually it's Derry who fixes breakfast and me and Soda who are left with the dishes. I hunted through the icebox and found some eggs. We all like our eggs done differently. I like them hard. Derry likes them in a bacon and tomato sandwich, and Soda Pop eats his with grape jelly. All three of us like chocolate cake for breakfast. This is boys living on their own. Mom had never allowed it with ham and eggs, but Derry let Soda and me talk him into it. We really didn't have to twist his arm. Derry loves chocolate cake as much as we do. Soda Pop always makes sure there's some in the icebox every night, and if there isn't, he cooks one up real quick. I like Derry's cakes better. Soda Pop always puts too much sugar in the icing. I don't see how he stands jelly and eggs and chocolate cake all at once, but he seems to like it. Derry drinks black coffee, and Soda Pop and I drink chocolate milk. We could have coffee if we wanted it, but we like chocolate milk. All three of us are crazy about chocolate stuff. Soda says if they ever make a chocolate cigarette, I'll have it made. Anybody home? A familiar voice called through the front screen, and Two Bit and Steve came in. We always just stick our heads into each other's houses and holler, hey, and walk in. Our front door is always unlocked in case one of the boys is hacked off at his parents and needs a place to lay over and cool off. We never could tell who we'd find stretched out on the sofa in the morning. It was usually Steve, whose father told him about once a week to get out and never come back. It kind of bugs Steve, even if his old man does give him $5 or $6 the next day to make up for it. Or it might be Dally, who lived anywhere he could. Once we even found Tim Shepard, the leader of the Shepard gang, and far from his own turf, reading the morning paper in the armchair. He merely looked up, said hi, and strolled out without staying for breakfast. Two Bit's mother warned us about burglars, but Derry, flexing his muscles so that they bulged like oversized baseballs, drawled that he wasn't afraid of any burglars and that we didn't really have anything worth taking. He'd risk a robbery, he said, if it meant keeping one of the boys from blowing up and robbing a gas station or something. So the door was never locked. In here, I yelled, forgetting that Derry and Soda Pop were still asleep. Don't slam the door. They slammed the door, of course, and Two Bit came running into the kitchen. He caught me by the upper arms and swung me around, ignoring the fact that I had two uncooked eggs in my hand. Hey, Pony Boy, he cried gleefully. Long time no see. You would have thought it had been 5 years instead of 5 days since I'd last seen him, but I didn't mind. I like old Two Bit. He's a good buddy to have. He spun me into Steve, who gave me a playful slap on my bruised back and shoved me across the room. One of the eggs went flying. It landed on the clock, and I tightened my grip on the other one so that it crushed and ran all over my hand. Now look what you did, I griped. There went our breakfast. Can't you two wait till I set the eggs down before you go shoving me all over the country? I really was a little mad because I had just realized how long it had been since I'd eaten anything. The last thing I'd eaten was a hot fudge sundae at Dairy Queen in Windricksville, and I was hungry. Two Bit was walking in a slow circle around me, and I sighed because I knew what was coming. Man, Dig Baldy here. He was staring at my head as he circled me. I wouldn't have believed it. I thought all the wild Indians in Oklahoma had been tamed. What little squaws got that tough looking mop of yours, Pony Boy? Oh, lay off, I said. I wasn't feeling too good in the first place, kind of like I was coming down with something. Two Bit winked at Steve, and Steve said, why, he had to get a haircut to get his picture in the paper. They'd never believe a greasy looking mug could be a hero. How do you like being a hero, Big Shot? How do I like what? Being a hero. You know, he shoved the morning paper at me impatiently. Like a big shot, even. I stared at the newspaper. On the front page of the second section, was the headline. Juvenile delinquents turn heroes. What I like is the turn bit, Two-Bit said, cleaning the egg up off the floor. Y'all were heroes from the beginning. You just didn't turn all of a sudden. I hardly heard him. I was reading the paper. That whole page was covered with stories about us. The fight, the murder, the church burning, the socias being drunk, everything. My picture was there with Derry and Soda Pop. The article told how Johnny and I had risked our lives saving those little kids. And there was a comment from one of the parents who said that they would have all burned to death if it hadn't been for us. It told the whole story of our fight with the socias, only they didn't say socias because most grown-ups don't know about the battles that go on between us. They had interviewed Cherry Valance, and she had said Bob had been drunk and that the boys were looking for a fight when they took her home. Bob had told her he'd fix us for picking up his girl. His buddy Randy Adderson, who had helped jump us, also said it was their fault and that we'd only fought back in self-defense. But they were charging Johnny with manslaughter. Then I discovered that I was supposed to appear at juvenile court for running away, and Johnny was too if he recovered. Not if, I thought again. Why do they keep saying if? For once, there weren't any charges against Dally, and I knew he'd be mad because the paper made him out a hero for saving Johnny and didn't say much about his police record, which he was kind of proud of. He'd kill those reporters if he got a hold of them. There was another column about just Derry and Soda and me, how Derry worked on 2 jobs at once and made good at both of them, and about his outstanding record at school. It mentioned Soda Pop dropping out of school so we could stay together, and that I made the honor roll at school all the time and might be a future track star. Oh, yeah, I forgot. This is in parentheses. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm on the A squad track team, the youngest one. I'm a good runner. He just never thought to tell us that. Then it said we shouldn't be separated after we had worked so hard to stay together. The meaning of that last line finally hit me. You mean, I swallowed hard, that they're thinking about putting me and Soda in a boys' home or something? Steve was carefully combing back his hair in complicated swirls. Something like that. I sat down in a daze. We couldn't get hauled off now, not after me and Derry had finally got through to each other. And now that the big rumble was coming up and we would settle this Soch greaser thing once and for all? Not now when Johnny needed us and Dally was still in the hospital and wouldn't be out for the rumble. No, I said out loud, and Two-Bit, who was scraping the egg off the clock, turned to stare at me. No what? No, they ain't going to put us in a boys' home. Don't worry about it, Steve said, cocksure that he and Soda Pop could handle anything that came up. They don't do things like that to heroes. We're Soda and Superman. That was as far as he got because Derry, shaved and dressed, came in behind Steve and lifted him up off the floor, then dropped him. We all called Derry Superman or Muscles at one time or another, but one time Steve made the mistake of referring to him as all brawn and no brains, and Derry almost shattered Steve's jaw. Steve didn't call him that again, but Derry never forgave him. Derry has never really gotten over not going to college. That was the only time I've ever seen Soda mad at Steve, although Soda attaches no importance to education. School bored him, no action. Soda came running in. Where's that blue shirt I washed yesterday? He took a swig of chocolate milk out of the container. Hate to tell you, buddy, Steve said, still flat on the floor, but you have to wear clothes at work. There's a law or something. Oh, yeah, Soda said. Where are those wheat jeans, too? I ironed. They're in my closet, Derry said. Hurry up. You're going to be late. Soda ran back, muttering, I'm hurrying. Steve followed him, and in a second there was a general racket of a pillow fight. I absent-mindedly watched Derry as he searched the icebox for chocolate cake. Derry, I said suddenly, did you know about the juvenile court? Without turning to look at me, he said evenly, yeah, the cops told me last night. I knew then that he realized we might get separated. I didn't want to worry him anymore, but I said, I had one of those dreams last night, the one I can't even remember. Derry spun around to face me, genuine fear on his face. What? I had a nightmare the night of Mom and Dad's funeral. I'd had nightmares and wild dreams every once in a while when I was little, but nothing like this one. I woke up screaming bloody murder, and I never could remember what it was that had scared me. It scared Soda Pop and Derry almost as bad as it scared me, for night after night, for weeks on end, I would dream this dream and wake up in a cold sweat or screaming, and I could never remember exactly what happened in it. Soda began sleeping with me, and it stopped recurring so often, but it happened often enough for Derry to take me to a doctor. The doctor said I had too much imagination. He had a simple cure, too: study harder, read more, draw more, play football more. After a hard game of football and 4 or 5 hours of reading, I was too exhausted, mentally and physically, to dream anything. But Derry never got over it, and every once in a while he would ask me if I ever dreamed any more. Was it very bad? Two Bit questioned. He knew the whole story, and having never dreamed about anything but blondes, he was interested. No, I lied. I had awakened in a cold sweat and shivering, but Soda was dead to the world. I had just wiggled closer to him and stayed awake for a couple hours, trembling under his arm. That dream always scared the heck out of me. Derry started to say something, but before he could begin, Soda Pop and Steve came in. You know what? Soda Pop said to no one in particular. When we stomp the Soshis good, me and Steve here are going to throw a big party, and everyone can get stoned. Then we'll go chase the Soshis clear to Mexico. Where are you going to get the dough, little man? Derry Derry had found the cake and was handing out pieces. I'll think of something, Soda Pop assured him between bites. You going to take Sandy to the party? I asked, just to be saying something. Instant silence. I looked around. What's the deal? Soda Pop was staring at his feet, but his ears were reddening. No, she went to live with her grandmother in Florida. How come? Look, Steve said, surprisingly angry. Does he have to draw you a picture? It was either that or get married, and her parents almost hit the roof at the idea of her marrying a 16-year-old kid. 17, Soda said softly. I'll be 17 in a couple of weeks. Oh, I said, embarrassed. Soda was no innocent. I had been in on bull sessions, and his bragging was as loud as anyone's, but never about Sandy, not ever about Sandy. I remembered how her blue eyes had glowed when she looked at him, and I was sorry for her. There was a heavy silence. Then Derry said, "We better get on to work, Pepsi Cola." Derry rarely called Soda by Dad's pet nickname for him, but he did so then because he knew how miserable Soda Pop was about Sandy. I hate to leave you here by yourself, Pony Boy, Derry said slowly. Maybe I ought to take the day off. I've stayed by my lonesome before. You can't afford a day off. Yeah, but you just got back, and I really ought to stay. I'll babysit him, Two-Bit said, ducking as I took a swing at him. I haven't got anything better to do. Why don't you get a job? Steve said. Ever consider working for a living? Work? Two-Bit was aghast. And ruin my rep? I wouldn't be babysitting the kid here if I knew of some good day nursery open on Saturdays. I pulled his chair over backwards and jumped on him, but he had me down in a second. I was kind of short on wind. I've got to cut out smoking or I won't make track next year. Holler, Uncle. Nope, I said, struggling, but I didn't have my usual strength. Derry was pulling on his jacket. You two do up the dishes. You can go to the movies if you want to before you go see Dally and Johnny. He paused for a second, watching Two-Bit squash the heck out of me. Two-Bit, lay off. He ain't looking so good. Pony Boy, you take a couple aspirins and go easy. You smoke more than a pack a day and I'll skin you. Understood? Yeah, I said, getting to my feet. You carry more than one bundle of roofing at a time today, and me and Soda will skin you. Understood? He grinned, one of his rare grins. Yeah, see you all this afternoon. Bye, I said. I heard our Ford's vroom and thought, Soda's driving, and they left. Anyway, I was walking around downtown and started to take this shortcut through an alley. Two-Bit was telling me about one of his many exploits while we did the dishes. While I did the dishes, he was sitting on the cabinet, sharpening that black-handled switchblade he was so proud of. And I ran into three guys. I says, howdy, and they just look at each other. Then one says, we would jump you, but since you're as slick as us, we figure you don't have nothing worth taking. I says, buddy, that's the truth, and went right on. Moral, what's the safest thing to be when one is met by a gang of social outcasts in an alley? A judo expert, I suggested. No, another social outcast, Two-Bit yelped, and nearly fell off the cabinet from laughing so hard. I had to grin too. He saw things straight and made them into something funny. We're going to clean up the house, I said. The reporters or police or somebody might come by. And anyway, it's time for those guys from the state to come by and check up on us.